welcome to the Recobobulation area. My name is Dan Shafer. Thank you for joining us. Today we have a very special interview for you, so we're just going to get right to it. Joining us today is the Mayor of Milwaukee, Cavalier Johnson, and the Milwaukee County Executive, David Crowley. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us, Dan.
So this was obviously a big year for you both, a big year for Milwaukee. A whole lot of that had to do with Act 12, the shared revenue and local sales tax bill that passed at the state level. That had a huge downstream effect for both the city and county and their budgets, which are now in the best position they've been in a generation.
Yes.
So when you look back at this year, beyond the bottom line financial implications of this, what does this change signify for Milwaukee? What does the larger meaning for the city and the county of this moment?
Well, I think outside of just the financials, it shows that we are able to come together and work in a bipartisan manner to get things done for our local communities. I can't forget that when we first started off on this quest, when I got elected mayor, at least, there were people, including people in Madison, who said that you're barking up the wrong tree. You're never going to get anything. You're wasting your time. You're wasting your breath. It's never going to happen. And because of the hard work, the diligence of myself, the county executive, the MMAC, our partners in the business community, you name it, we're able to get something done that took a whole generation to get done and get it done in a bipartisan manner. So I think that outside of the financial strength that Milwaukee County and the city of Milwaukee will find ourselves to be in 2024 is the fact that we've been able to strike an accord to work across party lines and to get major things accomplished. And that's just one example this year.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I mean, one, let's not forget the financials was the most important piece about all of this. And just
I've written a little bit about that. Over the years,
absolutely.
Yeah.
But just to add on what the mayor said, the other thing I thought was, historic about this moment was, we got outside of our geographical comfort zone, right? And built relationships, not just here locally with the business community leaders, nonprofits, but when you think about going to Western Wisconsin or Northern Wisconsin, going to Green Bay or going to Wausau and really finding ways to really build real authentic relationships, right? And so, for me, I spent time in the legislature as a state assembly representative. And so to continue those relationships back home as county executive, I think is one of the reasons why we were able to get this over the finish line. As the mayor pointed out, I mean, we're talking about a conversation that's been going on for at least 2 decades. And so for this to go on and happen right now is something historic and something that I'm glad we can hang our hat on.
Yeah, you had, leaders in Madison as recently as just a couple of years ago saying it would never happen.
Yes.
And now here we are at the end of 2023. The deal is signed. And here you are.
I think we can honestly say that the mayor and I, when we first got elected, everybody said that this was impossible. So to get this over the finish line, absolutely.
It's a big deal. It's
is.
a really big deal. But so as you look back, there were a number of ups and downs over the course of the negotiations, of course. What was the lowest point of those negotiations? Was there ever a point where you thought that this was not going to happen?
I honestly, I would say that there wasn't a point where we said that this can't happen. I mean, I think the mayor would agree with me. We had to get this done. Particularly from the county's perspective, this wasn't a moment where we're going to figure out how we make minor cuts that's going to be least harmful to this community. It was more of a situation that we have to get this done because we have to keep our buses running. We have to continue to invest in senior programming, people with disabilities and mental health in our parks, so on and so forth. But I will tell you that there were many times going back and forth, when you're talking about the negative perception that people have of Milwaukee, really trying to get over the hump and helping folks understand that if Milwaukee goes, there goes the state of Wisconsin as well. But I would say that whenever you have this level of bipartisanship happening at the state level, right, which doesn't happen pretty often or not often at all
in Wisconsin.
In Wisconsin, we
Are you saying that there is not always that much bipartisanship in this? No,
no, there's not. But I would say that I think everybody, because this wasn't just about the city of Milwaukee and Milwaukee County, we increased shared revenue for all communities across this state, that we had to get this done. But I would say that there were moments, going up to Madison, because I came to be county executive, so I wouldn't have to continue to go back to Madison. That for me, it was really about there isn't this can't be a lose-lose situation. We have to get somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, we both walked into this knowing that it needed to get done. So plan A was to get it done. Plan B was to refer to plan A. It needed to be done because the face of service delivery in our jurisdictions would have changed dramatically as we know them. I mean, speaking just for the city of Milwaukee, if we did not get this done, then we would have had to eliminate roughly half of the Milwaukee Police Department. We would have had to eliminate more than a quarter of the Milwaukee Fire Department. Our library system would have looked extremely different, probably would have not even really existed. And we would have lost, as well, several hundred other employees that deliver services across our community. So that was a dystopian future that we did not want to see. And so we had to go in there and we had to get this done. And that's exactly what we were able to do.
So you touched on it a little bit. So over the course of, a lot of these negotiations, there was some negativity, some pessimism, maybe even some outright insults levied at Milwaukee over the course of those negotiations, oftentimes from, some of those Republican leaders you're trying to build bridges with. What did that experience tell you about how Milwaukee is perceived, and how do you work to overcome that?
Yeah, sure enough, I mean, if you go back, several decades in this state, folks would say, run against Milwaukee, stick it to them. And certainly there's still some of that present in the legislature. Regardless of if that's the case or not, it's our responsibility to get wins for Milwaukee, right? So we have to, let that roll off our back. Don't forget about it and try to find ways in order to deliver those victories, much like we did with Act 12, much like we did with the Brewers deal, and other things. So, I think our point of view in this is to, compartmentalize those negative sort of aspects and try to accentuate the positives and try to ultimately get something done to move our community forward. And again, with speaking in a bipartisan manner, Act 12 and the Brewers deal recently, that's exactly what we were able to accomplish.
I would also say that, we also have to put this in perspective that, the leaders before us, they had some baggage with the Republicans in the state legislature, right? We had our Mayor Tom Baird, who was here for 20 years prior to me. We had Chris Abele, and prior to him, we had Scott Walker. And it's not to say that they were bad leaders or anything like that, but we do know that there was animosity there, particularly with the state legislature and our leadership right here in our own community. And I would say that starting with my election in 2020, becoming Milwaukee County Executive, a year after or 2 years after that, mayor becoming the city of Milwaukee mayor, that helped change the relationship, the dynamics of how people actually viewed the city of Milwaukee and Milwaukee County. And I think a lot of that goes with, one, stepping outside of our comfort zone, building these authentic relationships. But two, we were just governing a little bit differently, right? And so, they seen our budgets, they seen how we were operating. And I think that we have been open enough to where we know that we can't get things done for the city of Milwaukee County unless we're working with Republicans, because they're in charge of the state legislature. And as a county, we are extensions of the state. So there are certain things that they can still, take away or make us do at the county. So having that relationship was extremely critical to get these things done. And so I would say that, every day we're working to change this perception, to change this narrative. And I truly believe that we are making great steps in doing just that, but it's going to take some time. And we have to just remember that there's a lot of things happening in politics here locally in our region, but also across the state. And it is my hope that as we look to the future, we'll see some changes and continue to build those relationships to get things done.
Was there anything over the course of those negotiations that stood out as a turning point? Like if you could boil it down to one moment that you thought, hey, this is going to happen. Is there anything stand out?
Anything you can think of right away?
Look, we spent so much time in the Capitol and in the LRB.
You had that caught in the Capitol that you were talking about during the campaign.
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
Yes, we did. I don't know if there was one thing in particular. I mean, I think, both the county executive and myself, we went in there knowing that it needed to get done. So even in the the valleys of those conversations, there were some really deep valleys. We still knew that this had to get done, that we had to fight and find some way. We had to advocate for our jurisdictions in order to get this done. So I don't know if there's one thing that we can point to other than our North Star and pointing to that and knowing that it needed to get done.
You know, and you know, as I reflect, you know, just thinking about it, maybe the first meeting, right? Because, you know, I mean, prior
like
to
first when, like first.
Well, when I say the first meeting, I would say that the mayor and I probably had, right? And the reason why I say it that way is because I was a state representative, and we were having this conversation then, and we never had a meeting between the county executive, mayor, and Republican leaders, right? And so the fact of the matter is that, and the mayor touches on it all the time. He says, you know, when we first had this conversation, it was hell no, right? And then it became hell no to I'm going to think about it to, okay, we need to have this meeting. And so and I would even argue that when you're seeing the Wisconsin Counties Association, when you're seeing the Towns Association, when you're seeing the League of Municipalities also being brought to the table, I think that showed us that there's some light at the end of this tunnel.
I believe that was no, hell no, never going to happen.
There it is.
Yep.
And as I think about it too, so I guess the first meeting, and I think the county exec is absolutely right on that. I think for me, as I sort of riff off of what he's saying, when I was first elected mayor, the first call that I made was to Speaker Voss. It was to Speaker Voss, and in the spirit of having that cat in the Capitol, I went to visit him in his office, and he was welcoming to me to come and do that. I felt like we were on a pretty good trajectory when he also reciprocated and came to Milwaukee City Hall. And I'll never forget the day, because when he walked into my office, he looked around and said, "Oh my gosh, this is the first time I've ever been in the mayor's office." But therein lies the problem, right? Like, there's no way that you can bridge these divides if you're not having conversations, if you're not talking to each other, right? And so whether it's me in his office or him in mine, we started to do that very, very early. And those are some peaks, but like, as I said, I mean, there certainly were some valleys as well, but we just kept our eye on the North Star of getting it done.
So you two have obviously worked together a whole lot on this over the past year. How would you characterize the working relationship that the two of you have, and what are some examples of the ways that the two of your offices have worked together over the past couple of years?
We definitely have a great relationship. Our wives also make sure of that, because they're also good friends, and we kind of joke about them being the real political housewives of Milwaukee. We love you, Erica and Dominique.
Yeah, we do.
But I would say that, we have a standing meeting, and we meet every month just to talk about issues. How can we support one another, right? And the better the city of Milwaukee does, the better the county does, and vice versa. And so, and it's not to say that we're always going to agree on everything that we're trying to do for our communities, but we know how to have those tough conversations, be open and honest and transparent as far as where we are related to our perspective positions. And so, I truly appreciate him and the friendship that we have had for over 20 years, because we also went to high school together. So that makes it a little bit easier as well. Because he definitely knows where some of my bones are buried from back in the day.
Would you like to share any of those with us today?
Well, actually, Dan. No, just
but I would say it's a good working relationship. And quite frankly, I'm not sure if you can go anywhere in the state or anywhere in the country and you have this working level of relationship between a county executive and a city mayor.
Yeah, I would totally concur with the county executive on that excellent working relationship. Yes, we do have that standing meeting, but then on top of that, I mean, the fact of the matter is that I can't, shake a cat without hitting him. Like, every time I turn around, like, he's there, and every time he turns around, I'm there. I mean, this is just today alone, and this is just some random day, right? This is our second time together, and we'll be together a third time later tonight too. So, like, we have a good working relationship. We do meet often. We've got the personal relationship there as well, and both of us understand. And as the county executive pointed out, that my success in the city is his success in the county, because my constituents are his constituents. His success at the county is my success in the city. While he's got some constituents who are not mine, the vast majority of my constituents are his, and the vast majority of the cultural assets that the county possesses are right here in the city of Milwaukee. So it's a mutual relationship. And I think that, both of us understand that success for one equals success for all.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So I understand there were some interesting roundtable meetings that you had during those Act 12 negotiations when with the Legislative Fiscal Bureau.
Yeah.
What happened when the city and county would step out and break out and have those breakout sessions and meetings and those negotiations?
Oh man, you want us to put us all out there, man? Well, so for me, I truly appreciate the nonpartisan bureaus that we have. Whether you talk about the Fiscal Bureau, the Reference Bureau, Audit Bureau, so on and so forth, because it gives us an opportunity to ask real questions that we may not know the answers to, that's particularly related to state government. So having the ability and the understanding of how to utilize those lawyers who work for everybody in the state capitol, right? And even us as constituents, there were many times when we had to do our own sidebar to figure out what exactly does this mean, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we aren't necessarily the experts in these positions. We have budget directors, we have comptrollers, we have people who delve into these numbers, but I have to make sure that I give a shout out to our comptroller, Scott Mansky, who was extremely helpful, as well as our budget director, Joe Lamers, and Alec Knutson, our government relations person from the Milwaukee County side. Because if it wasn't for their expertise and being able to dig deep into these numbers, it would have been very difficult for us to get to this position that we're in now.
Yeah, I mean, for the county executives team, for my team, it was really all hands on deck. Whether it was our intergovernmental relations office and Jim Bowl and Jordan Primico and our budget director, Nick Kovac, and my chief of staff, Nick Desiato, who was a part of those conversations. I mean, just really all hands on deck. In terms of the Legislative Reference Bureau, I mean, we spent so many hours in there.
Really needed to cut a few nights.
Yeah, and it was like you never knew, you knew when you were going to get there, but you didn't know when you're going to leave or if you were going to leave.
Sure.
But I really did appreciate and continue to appreciate, as County Executive Crowley pointed out, the nonpartisan nature of the staff at the Legislative Reference Bureau. In particular, Bob Lang, who's a legend there. He was just the keynote speaker at the Wisconsin Policy Forum, Salute to Local Government. And somebody said something like, Taylor Swift and has the Swifties, and Bob Lang has the Langies.
Yes,
and and I'm a proud Swiftie and a proud Langie. And it doesn't matter what political stripe you wear. My understanding is, and I can see this, I experienced this myself, folks will look at any numbers that are produced and say, are these Bob Lang's numbers?
Yes.
Right. And that just speaks to the testament of the respect that he commands from both Democrats and Republicans. And we were very fortunate to be able to work with him and his team.
So it's great that you guys have been aligned on so much. It's great to see the county and the city aligned and working together so often. But it'd be impossible for the two of you to agree on everything, right?
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
What's something that the two of you have disagreed on?
What's something that we have disagreed on?
Yeah.
Well, so I mean, I guess I can. I know, we work very closely together, and agree on a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of the Milwaukee Brewers deal, there was some disagreement. That we were always working to make sure that we provided the best service, kept the team here, and had little to no impact on our taxpayers. But to me, if there was going to be a local contribution, and only 22%, according to the MMAC's report, of attendees to Brewers games come from the city of Milwaukee, I didn't think that necessarily the contribution for the city should have been as high as the counties, because you would have had those county folks, those city folks who are still county residents who have been paying twice, and then the balance of folks coming from outside the city, from Milwaukee County. So we had a disagreement on that, but we continued to talk about it, and we worked together, and we got ourselves in a position where, for us, for the city of Milwaukee, the amount of money, the amount of dollars that, our taxpayers have to spend is effectively zero. It's nothing because we continue to
Same
work
here.
together and support each other and find an effective way in order to get this done.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I think that may be the one thing I can
I
actually
think so.
remember, because my thing is that, well, I don't want the county paying for it all. but as Mayor Johnson pointed out, it didn't stop us from doing the work that we needed to do. And I think that's one of the reasons why we were able to get this creative solution to where effectively, I mean, there's no money leaving his coffers. There's no money leaving the county's coffers when it comes down to this. But again, those disagreements happen. There are fees that we have to pay to every municipality that I never agree with, and it's not just City of Milwaukee, or it could be any community, right? And so, but again, it's about how we work through those disagreements, and quite frank, it's not necessarily like we're disagreeing. We're just doing what we can in our positions to get the maximum benefit, because he represents the city, I represent the county. But at the end of the day, the work that we're doing is going to benefit everyone.
So the big picture is aligned, even if maybe you have different priorities.
Oh, absolutely.
for
Sure.
county and
Absolutely.
city.
I mean, he wants to grow the population by 1 million, right? In the city of Milwaukee. And like for us, it's like, okay, how do we make sure we have the infrastructure to support that, right? Because we want to be able to grow our population. We believe in having density within Milwaukee County. But if we don't have great parks, if we don't have a solid transportation system, if we're not focusing on, all the work that we can do to support the ideas, his vision of what he wants within the city, then it doesn't do us any justice for within Milwaukee County. So we just have to have this symbiotic relationship to where you're going to have you have to piggyback off one another.
And speaking about, the county executive's vision for robust transportation options here in Milwaukee, man, there's the bus rapid transit system that the county is looking to implement. I mean, they've already got one implemented east-west from downtown Milwaukee to Wauwatosa, and then studying right now the north-south between Glendale and Franklin. Those run primarily in the city of Milwaukee. There needs to be a partnership with the city in order to effectuate that, right? Those stops have to be built. The bus only lanes have to be recognized. That's a partnership with my administration, with my Department of Public Works, in order to make that happen, to fulfill the county executive's goals to have that sort of transportation system here that feeds into my goals as well. So it's all working together.
So that was going to be something I was going to ask about. So you obviously the
No,
county
he didn't give us these questions ahead of time.
So the county obviously oversees the bus system. The city oversees a number of things, Department of Public Works, the streetcar, things like that. How can you better align and better look at shared services or work together on those, reimagining the traffic engineering for a number of the streets that the DPW is doing, and working to kind of reinvent the bus system? How can you better work together and share services and
we're in the process,
see that vision through going forward?
We're in the process of having that conversation now. We just we have a partnership. We've asked the Wisconsin Policy Forum. They just recently produced a report to look at some of the back office work that we could be doing together. But I would say that, this is going to take time, right? Because we have to do a deep dive and really understanding, one, how is this going to impact the folks that we actually represent? How is this going to impact the budget? Because we want to make sure that we're saving money also down the line to continue to make the critical investments that we've been making thus far. But it's just going to take time. And I would say that, it's a great partnership to be able to look at the city of Milwaukee and figure out what we can do behind closed doors or those back office works to consolidate and do great work. But we need also other municipalities, right, to also get on board and absolutely understand why they need to be partners, because the city of Milwaukee and Milwaukee County, we can't do it alone. And even though, I represent the entire county, the city does support many other municipalities in many different ways. And so we're currently having those conversations right now. But I would say that this is going to take time, just in order to not just have these conversations, but really identify what will work.
Yep. No, ditto.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that goal to grow to 1 million Milwaukeeans. And it seems like, not to put words in your mouth, you're on board with that goal as well.
Yes.
So one of the things I was thinking about within the context of that was the topic of immigration. So, thinking about where and how Milwaukee has grown in the past 20 plus years, the data and the demographics will tell you that it hasn't necessarily been millennials moving back to cities or empty nesters buying condos downtown. A lot of it has been through the growth of minority populations, immigrant populations, Hispanic populations on the south side, various pockets of Asian populations, kind of throughout the city in various different neighborhoods. A 2016 study from UW-Milwaukee and the Greater Milwaukee Foundation said that the growth of the Latino population accounted for all of the metro area's net growth between 1990 and 2014. So do you think immigration needs to be a bigger part of the city and county's growth going forward? And how does that fit into the larger focus on growing the city to 1 million people?
Yes, absolutely it does. We're not going to be able to reach our goals for population growth in this community unless immigration is a part of that. I realize that, I recognize that, and I want to foster a community where everybody feels welcome, not just the people who are here that we want to retain, but also new arrivals to Milwaukee as well. It's funny you talk about millennials moving to the city. I was just actually earlier today at a business that attracts as interns out of college, young people, attracts millennials, and then they've got a really high clip, some like 80-90% of those interns from all over the country decide to sign on the dotted line and stay here, stay in this community because they see the things that we're doing in this community. So there is some of that, not enough. We need to work on that end too, but immigration certainly needs to be a part of the conversation about growing Milwaukee in the future if we're going to reach 1 million people.
And I mean, ditto. I mean, I don't know what even to add to that other than, for us as a county, we need to make sure that we have that supporting infrastructure needed when you talk about bringing people into this community. And so, when it comes down to growing our population, but particularly when it comes down to our immigrant population, we also need a stronger partnership, particularly with the state and the federal government. We know that the federal government has a broken system and we need that fixed as soon as possible. And we need to make sure that if folks are going to be coming to Milwaukee, whether they live here or they're coming here from somewhere else, we have to have that support system in place. And being the Health and Human Service organization, in a sense, when you think about again, Health and Human Services, homeless population, you think about people with disabilities and mental health services, so on and so forth, the list continues to go on. We need to make sure that we have that infrastructure. And that's one of the reasons why we want to strengthen this partnership with one another. But again, we're going to need the state and the federal government to step up.
So we've seen some of these instances of Southern governors transporting migrants to places like Martha's Vineyard or the vice president's house or something like that. There's obviously an aspect to this that is a political stunt.
Yes.
But is there any part of you that thinks you want, you have this goal to grow, that you would maybe send a message out and say, hey, we want people to come here? Is there any potential for, coordinating with some efforts like that, or even just putting the message out that Milwaukee is a place where people from all over the world can come to?
So I have said and will continue to say that we are and will continue to be a welcoming place in the city of Milwaukee. We are sort of like Wisconsin. To me, I feel like we're Wisconsin's Ellis Island in a sense, because nowhere else in this state are you going to find the population density, the diversity that you see here in the city of Milwaukee. And that's something for us to be proud of, because that's the American story. And so we want to see that. But we don't want to see, though, is for folks to be used as political props in a political stunt, as you've seen with Governors DeSantis and Abbott, sending people all across the country who are fleeing their home countries because they feel unsafe or whatever the case may be. So it's important for us to recognize that. I think the other thing that we want to be cognizant of is we don't want our systems to be overwhelmed, because as some of those communities along the border have seen with an influx of migrants from other countries, if you don't have the infrastructure in place to take in those folks, then you have folks sleeping on the street or sleeping in police, district stations, as we see in Chicago or in New York City and the like. So we don't want that to happen. We want to make sure there is a humanitarian touch to this, while also being a welcoming place for folks to come.
Now, to be very clear, it is unfortunate what we're seeing related to how these lies are being used as political pawns, right? And so just to add on to what the mayor just said, is that, we don't want to be, we want to set folks up for success. And so we need to make sure that we're building that infrastructure in order to set people up for success, to be able to contribute and being taxpayers, being able to work the many jobs that we have available, not just here within Milwaukee County, but many of our surrounding areas, right? And I find it ironic when you're hearing particularly Republicans talk about the need for more workers, yet they don't want to hire any of these migrant workers, and they don't want to, those aren't our folks. And it's just like, at the end of the day, we have to fill these jobs. And no matter where they're coming from, these are real people with real needs who want to contribute back to society. And this can be that welcoming place, but we need that infrastructure to do just that. We've been able to do things around our homeless population and build more affordable housing for those who are currently here. But I will tell you that if we're going to do that moving forward, particularly to bring people here, because I would tell you, come to Milwaukee, right? We have something to offer everybody, no matter what background you come from. So we are a very welcoming place. We're the most diverse place here in the state of Wisconsin, but we have to make sure that infrastructure is available to make sure that we can set folks up for success.
So let's talk a little bit more about infrastructure, maybe more built infrastructure. Sure. Obviously a topic I've written quite a bit about over the years. And a topic that's been in the news a lot this past year. The topic of freeway removal has been a big one in Milwaukee. Where do you each stand at the moment on 794 and reimagining the Stadium Freeway?
So the Stadium Freeway is Miller Park.
You're dating yourself.
So 175 north. 175. So first and foremost, 175, I think that can be definitely be reimagined, right? Removing that highway to nowhere, and really creating that boulevard right there, which creates even more developmental opportunities for us to build that infrastructure so we can be that place and actually have the infrastructure available for when we actually get the density and get to 1 million people. I have not actually made a decision or as far as where I am on 794. I
you can make that decision right now. You can tell us right now.
Well, I think there's a lot, right? But as a representative of the entire county, I also want to make sure that I understand the entire breakdown and the traffic impact that not only affects the city of Milwaukee, but all different types of communities. And so, I know that there's conversations being had, and I've seen some of the models and understand exactly why folks want to be able to remove 794. And so when you think about the number of acreage that we free up, the green space, the infrastructure that can be built, that contributes to us being successful as a community. But I have not seen all of the data for me to be able to make an informed decision related to whether I believe that it should be torn down or continue to take up that existing footprint.
Well, I think that the images that all of us saw that were produced that showed renderings of what a future Milwaukee could be without 7094 there were enticing, right? I mean, you'd have to, be dead to not think that, that's, something that's very, very appealing. And so I think that for many folks on its face, there certainly are other considerations that, we have to consider as well here, not just the vehicular consequence for cars and trucks and heavy vehicles leaving the port that would then have to go to divert it into neighborhoods or whatnot, but also the seafaring vessels, right? Those boats that traverse along the rivers, right? And the lifts that need to happen. If folks are in Chicago and the water is a little lower and the bridges don't have to lift so much, that's one thing. But here, the bridges and the water are a little closer, and for whatever reason, we're not in a position. Maybe it takes an act of Congress to create time frames in which we could lift those bridges, as opposed to having sort of like an a la carte. Whoever shows up, you can just have it lifted whenever you want to. That poses potentially a challenge. The other thing, as well, here that we have to consider, and all this is being studied right now, is the fact that, when that traffic were to come down, does it create a freeway on the ground? Does it create another space, or does it create a space that is unsafe? I know we talk about the separation between the Central Business District and the Third Ward, those two parts of downtown Milwaukee. But bringing that down to grade, does that create an environment that's unsafe for everybody, for pedestrians, for bicyclists, for the like? So I think that's something that we have to consider as well as it relates to 794. So again, that's being studied, and we'll, obviously, look at that. It's a big, important, conversation and big, important decision that'll be generational that we'll make when we're in the position to do so. As it relates to I almost said Miller Park too, the Stadium Freeway there. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's a much easier call to say, yeah, that's an opportunity for us to hopefully be in a position to pull that out, create a model. That'd be a blank canvas. Like you could create a model street there, is what I've said. And it's
real
not
connection between the north and south side.
Yeah, correct. and it's not even just that. I mean, you look, further northwest in the Fond du Lac, freeway on the northwest side of the city of my old aldermanic district, I think presents a lot of opportunity, too, for, potential removal. So I think we want to be cognizant of all of those things as we're looking forward here. One of the things that I did say, and one of the things that I feel comfortable saying right now is that one of the options that I think will be considered, which is, rebuild it in kind, I think that should not be whatever the option is.
I agree with that.
The status quo is not
the status quo
yeah.
is unacceptable to me. I think that certainly should not happen. And I've said this to the folks who've asked, like, I want for ultimately more land for the Department of City Development to be able to sell and pitch and develop. And I want more public facilities for the Department of Public Works to turn over into people-centered infrastructure that attracts and retains talent.
Mm-hmm. So I want to talk a little bit about 2024, looking ahead to next year. You guys are both running for re-election, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a big election year. We're hosting the RNC in Milwaukee. But right now, it does seem very likely that the nominee, the candidate who will be giving the nomination speech at the RNC in Milwaukee,
You don't have to say his name.
will be Donald Trump. Donald Trump has lied about the election results in Milwaukee countless times. So how do you plan to respond to those lies that question the legitimacy of the votes and the people that you're serving? And how do you stand up for those people in those moments?
Well, one, let's just recognize that, those who were deemed the fake electors in Wisconsin have already said that they've been duped and that they were even lied to. And so, and many of those, if not all of them, except for maybe one, will tell you that the election was not stolen. And so I think that
except for maybe one who's still on the Wisconsin
that's the
Elections
one I'm
Commission,
thinking about.
That's
right?
another conversation.
That's another podcast episode, right? But I think that, one, for us, this is really about showcasing what we have to offer. This is, we're talking the opportunity to get free advertising about why the city of Milwaukee and Milwaukee County is a perfect destination. So I want to focus on how we can continue to do that, right? But when it comes down to that guy, I don't even like saying his name, anybody, no matter what party you are, you have to push up against these lies. And this is the issue that we're seeing and why democracy is eroding right here before our eyes in the United States of America, is because you have somebody who is the leader of the free world going out there telling lies and who has the ability to do that and deem it political speech.
Mm-hmm.
Like that is unfortunate. It is unfair, particularly to his party, because many of them won't even stand up to him and really come out swinging and saying that what it needs to be. And even those who do that have been kicked out of the party, right? And so, for us, this is, I have my popcorn ready to see how this actually goes. But for me, this isn't even about Republican. This is about how does Milwaukee, city of Milwaukee, Milwaukee County business have the opportunity to showcase the great things, make some money, and hopefully, on their way out, they get hit by the blue wave from Lake Michigan.
Totally concur. And, how do you address those things? Well, look, the best way to combat a lie is with the truth, You tell the truth. And I think that, folks here knew and saw over the course of the former president's tenure that they were being fed lies, that democracy was at risk. And they decided to elect somebody who was the antidote to that. Probably the polar opposite of Donald Trump, and that being President Joe Biden. And I think that the same thing is going to happen in the 2024 presidential election as well. Folks will reject the lies. They will reject the lies, and they'll want the truth. And Joe Biden is the truth, and Donald Trump is a lie.
So you're both running for re-election as well next year.
Yes.
Oh, we forgot about that part.
Yeah. What do you want to see happen in the city of Milwaukee and Milwaukee County in the next 4 years? What's that vision? Where is Milwaukee 4 or 5 years from now, 10 years from now?
Well, so when I first ran for mayor, I talked about wanting to build a city that was stronger, that was safer, and that was more prosperous for everybody. And I believe that over the course of the last 2 years, working in conjunction and partnership with the county executive too, we've been laying a foundation to do just that. When I talk about strength, I mean, we secure the city's finances, all right, and we'll be able to deliver services in the city in the years ahead. When I talk about making the city stronger, I mean, when you look at violent crime overall, and you look at homicides overall, they've been going down in the city of Milwaukee. When I talk about making the city a more prosperous place, I mean, you don't have to go very far from where we're sitting right now. Look out the window, and not just here downtown, but elsewhere in the community. There are cranes in the sky. If there are cranes in the sky, that means there are people working, right? And so I want to build on those things to create more stability in people's lives. Because when people have stability in their lives, then it creates stability in their family's life. And if folks have stability in their family's life, that means they're not moving around. They're not transient. The neighborhoods are not porous. And when that happens, you get a critical mass of that. Folks start looking out for each other. The relationships become familial. And when folks start looking out for each other and the relationships become familial, the neighborhoods start to gel. They become cohesive. And when that happens, that's how you get to the greater public safety that all of us really want to see. It doesn't matter where in Milwaukee you live. I can tell you this because I travel to neighborhoods all across Milwaukee. Those values are the same. So, so we want to build on that foundation in the future. I want to see more growth. I'm the development mayor. I want to see more development. I want to see more cranes in the sky. I want more family supporting jobs right here in the city. I want to continue to green up Milwaukee, and I want to make sure that we're fulfilling the goals that we laid out to make the city even safer. Right. And that includes, working to make sure that we battle the scourge of reckless driving, which we've done a lot of things on. There is obviously still more work to do. We're committed to doing that. Working to make sure that folks know that there are violence prevention initiatives out there, and encourage people to use those methods as opposed to resorting to violence to solve disputes. And then also working to, for the first time in a generation, support and grow the number of firefighters and police officers on the streets in the city of Milwaukee. And those are the things I'm looking forward to doing in the next term.
When I think about where I want Milwaukee County to be in 4 or 5 years, I automatically go back to our vision. Milwaukee County can become the healthiest county in the state of Wisconsin by achieving racial equity. I want a healthier Milwaukee County. And so for me, that always goes back to not just racial equity, but I think about the social determinants of health. How does housing, how does transportation, how does access to healthcare, how does education, how does income become better to where we're a destination of choice and no one wants to leave and go somewhere else? I get it. Many people may not like our winters, but this is still a great place, and you get a chance to actually enjoy all 4 seasons right here in this place. But it's really about
sometimes in 1 week.
We actually opened up a golf courses this week because it's so seasonably warm. But I want this to be a destination of choice. I want people to want to continue to live here, work here, and have fun here every single day, and make. I want people to look at Chicago, which is our biggest suburb, right? And I want them to look at it as those folks are coming here because we have so much more to offer. And so, excuse me. And so for me, it's really about being that healthier community that no matter what zip code you live in, no matter who you love, no matter how much money you're making, you feel comfortable, you feel safe, and you feel invited just being in this community.
All right. Do we have time for some lightning round questions?
Let's do
It's lightning round.
Let's
It's
do the
fast.
lightning round. It'll be fast. That's lightning.
Yeah, that's right. All right. You are both dads with young children. What's a funny moment when your dad life and your elected official life have intersected?
When my daughter found out I was in charge of the parks. Yes.
Whenever we go like to dinner or something and people stop me and say, "Hey, Mayor, this or that," and I'm just trying to like, have a, cheeseburger with my kids or something.
Yeah. You guys went to the same high school.
Go Red Cats.
Somewhat famously. Which of you were more likely to get in trouble?
Me. It was definitely me.
You're both millennials.
Mm-hmm.
What is your most millennial quality?
Probably being an older millennial, because I can see myself on both ends.
Yes. Yes. I love the fact that I remember the days before and after cell phones.
There you go. There you go.
And social media.
If you guys played a game of basketball one-on-one, who wins?
Me.
When you go to a Brewers game, which racing sausage do you root for?
The winner.
I was gonna say chorizo.
All right. Let's see. What's more exciting, a Damian Lillard logo 3 or a Giannis Antetokounmpo fast break dunk?
Fast break dunk.
I have to agree.
Fast break. We're going with Giannis.
Yes.
Let's see. What's something you'd like to say to Craig Counsell when he comes back to Milwaukee?
Why, Craig? Why?
Don't stop investing in Milwaukee County.
If you could go to only one Milwaukee County park for the rest of your life, which one would it be?
Oh, that's a good question. That is a really good question. I would say Lincoln Park. And because I can go to the pool, I can take my girls to the playground, and I can do some golfing.
There you go.
Washington Park. That's where I learned how to swim. That's where I take my kids. More than any other park, I go to Washington Park the most.
Is there a park that you consider to be a hidden gem that you would like people to maybe check out?
Hidden gem. Well, I would say all of our parks are hidden gems.
Such a political answer.
Everybody has their favorite park.
Yeah, they're all so well known. It's difficult.
But if you like a good beer garden, South Shore.
There you go.
Oh, there you go. That's a good one.
All right, slightly more serious. Do either of you have aspirations to run for higher office at some point in your career? And would either of you consider running for governor in 2026?
Maybe.
Maybe to which one?
I don't know.
To
No.
both.
Possibly to both.
Possibly to both.
I mean, everybody's got aspirations, right? We're young men, right? We got their whole political future ahead of us. We'll see what happens in the future. I think right now, as you correctly point out, both of us are running for re-election for mayor and county executive. I think that's where our immediate goals is to win re-election and continue doing the work in our communities.
Yes.
All right. Any other big picture thoughts on the future of the city and reflections on 2023 before we let you go to your next thing here?
Well, I mean, for me, this has been a historic year. I mean, actually a historic term for me. I think about the Brewers deal. I think about the local option sales tax and shared revenue. I also think about the Milwaukee Public Museum and the fact that we've had the first surplus in county government in over 2 decades. And so for me, this has been historic and surreal, and I'm ready for the next challenge.
Yeah, I would agree on a number of those points, whether it's brewers or sales tax. What I pointed out before in terms of being able to finally make investments for the first time in a generation in our public safety apparatus and police and in fire. I mean, the infrastructure changes that we're doing, this legacy project of building out protected bike lane network that'll continue well into the future. There's a lot of upside in Milwaukee. I mean, the businesses that we're attracting, hear the transformation that we're seeing downtown and in the neighborhoods as well, which I'm really, really excited about. I'm looking forward to the next term and then in the future as well.
All right. Very good. Well, thank you so much for joining us here in the Recobobulation area.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Always
Dan.
a pleasure, Dan.
Thanks.